Good morning, family. You ever try to fix your life by rearranging the outside but still feel like something's missing? You get a new job, a new partner, a new city, a new car, but deep down, something's still off. That's because you're trying to pick better fruit without dealing with the root. And let me tell you something I learned the hard way. You are the root, not your circumstances, not your bank account, not your followers. You. I remember years ago when I was hustling hard, talking 12-hour days, grinding, striving, pushing to make things happen. On the surface, people thought I was winning. Suits were sharp, smile was polished, business cards were crisp. But inside, I was tired, frustrated, and quietly wondering, is this it? You ever been there? When you reach a level you thought would bring peace, but instead it brings pressure. When you get what you wanted and still feel unsatisfied? That's because external success will never heal internal emptiness. Write this down in your soul. You can't outrun what you haven't outgrown. And back then, I hadn't grown. I hadn't healed. I was trying to build a $1 million business with $10 self-worth. I was trying to lead people when I couldn't even lead my own thoughts. Trying to inspire faith when I was still operating from fear. It wasn't until I stopped and asked myself one of the most powerful questions I've ever asked. What if the problem is not out there? What if it's in here? Ooh, that hit me. Because it meant I had to take radical responsibility. Not blame myself, but own myself. I had to look in the mirror and say, you're not just the one experiencing life, you're the one creating it. See, life is not happening to you, it's happening through you. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your patterns, they're all seeds. And the fruit you keep seeing, that's just the harvest. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a tree, big branches, bright leaves, hanging fruit. But what if that tree started losing fruit? Oh, the fruit turned bitter? Would you glue new fruit on the branches and call it fixed? Of course not. You'd check the soil, you'd water the roots, you'd inspect the foundation. That's what it looks like to focus on yourself. It's not selfish, it's essential. It's not vanity, it's vitality. Because when the root is right, the fruit doesn't lie. So stop treating symptoms and start healing systems. Stop chasing outcomes and start cultivating identity. Because when you become someone different, you attract something different. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits, your beliefs, and your identity. And identity doesn't change until you do the real, raw, sacred work of facing yourself, forgiving yourself, loving yourself, and growing yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you want a different life, you don't need a different job or a different zip code. You need a different you. You are the root. Nurture it, water it, protect it, and watch your life bloom in ways you never thought possible. Let me take you deeper into that next layer. The power of focus and how it governs the energy that shapes your entire life. There's a universal truth that most people hear, but very few actually live by. Energy flows where attention goes. Now that sounds simple, maybe even cliche, but I promise you, it's one of the most powerful spiritual and practical principles in existence. Your focus is not just a habit, it's a force. It is the steering wheel of your life. Wherever you point it, that's where your energy, your actions, your emotions, and ultimately your outcomes will follow. You ever wake up and immediately grab your phone, scroll through news, notifications, other people's opinions, other people's highlight reels, and then wonder why you feel drained before 9 a.m.? That's not a coincidence. That's your focus being hijacked. And when your focus is scattered, your power is diluted. You become reactive instead of proactive. You live in survival instead of strategy. I used to be there. There was a season in my life where I woke up every day already behind. My focus was on what I didn't have, what wasn't working, who didn't believe in me, and what had gone wrong the day before. And let me tell you something. That kind of focus produces a very specific kind of fruit. stress, self-doubt, confusion, and scarcity. But when I started intentionally choosing to direct my focus toward gratitude, growth, possibility, and purpose, everything began to shift. And here's the kicker: nothing outside me changed at first. The same bills were there, the same challenges were knocking, the same circumstances were showing up, but I was different. My focus had moved from lack to legacy, from fear to faith, from frustration to clarity. And guess what? My energy shifted. I started to walk differently, talk differently, create differently. And that new energy, it became a magnet. Doors started opening that had been closed. People started showing up who matched my mission. Opportunities that had always been around suddenly became visible because my eyes were finally on the right thing. Let me break it down even more. Your focus is a flashlight. If you shine it in a dark room, whatever you point it at becomes what you see most clearly. Focus it on your failures, and guess what you feel? Failure. Focus it on your future, and you start to feel faith rising up in you. But the flashlight doesn't move itself. You've got to take control of where you aim it. And most people, they don't aim. They drift. They give their focus away freely to distractions, to drama, to doubt, and then wonder why life feels heavy. Let me tell you, life isn't always heavy, but your focus can make it feel that way. You were designed to be deliberate. You were created to live on purpose. But you can't do that when your mind is parked in the past or idling in fear. You've got to take the wheel back. You've got to own your attention, because wherever it goes, your life follows. When you focus on what's wrong, you stay stuck in the problem. When you focus on what's possible, you become the solution. When you lock in on purpose, you activate power. Every moment, you are either feeding your future or fueling your fear based on where your focus is. So the question isn't, do I have energy? The question is, where am I placing it? Because you do have energy, you're just spending it on things that don't serve the life you say you want. Focus is the filter, and when you clean up that filter, when you shift what you're looking at, your entire world starts to look different. And the beautiful part is you don't have to wait for next year, next month, or even next week. You can shift your focus now, in this moment. And when you do, your energy will rise to meet your intention. Every time, there's a powerful shift that happens when you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That one shift right there is the difference between living like a victim and rising like a victor. Because the truth is, life doesn't always deal you a fair hand. People will disappoint you. You'll face rejection. You'll experience pain, betrayal, loss, frustration. That's real. I'm not here to sugarcoat it or pretend life is all sunshine and rainbows, but I am here to tell you something even more real. You don't have to stay where life dropped you. There was a time in my life when everything felt like it was falling apart. People I trusted let me down. Things I'd built started crumbling. I felt abandoned, misunderstood, even angry at God. I was walking around with a smile on my face and a storm in my soul. And I was good at pretending. I was good at showing up in public like everything was fine. But on the inside, I was crumbling. I was playing the victim in my own story, rehearsing every wrong, every disappointment, every moment that didn't go my way. But one day I got tired, not physically tired, soul tired. And I made a decision. I said, I don't want to carry this story anymore. I want to change it. And in that moment, I took back something I didn't even know I'd given away, my power. You see, a victim waits, a victim blames, a victim holds other people responsible for their healing. A victim sits in pain and says, I can't move forward until they say sorry. I can't grow until they come back. I can't succeed until the world changes. And let me tell you, that mindset will keep you bound for life. Because you'll always be waiting for something outside of you to fix something inside of you. But a victor says, this hurt me, yes, but it will not define me. A victor says, I'm not responsible for what they did, but I am responsible for how I rise. A victor says, I will not let the worst moment of my life become the main character in my story. That's not easy, but it's necessary, because the longer you live in blame, the longer you stay in bondage. Blame feels good in the moment. It gives us a false sense of control, but healing gives us real power. And that power only comes when we look in the mirror and say, I choose to grow from this. I choose to take this pain and turn it into purpose. I choose to rise. Everything you've been through, the failures, the heartbreaks, the things that didn't make sense, none of it was random. It was part of your preparation. It was part of your becoming. You are not here by accident, and neither is your pain. But your pain is not meant to be your prison. It's meant to be your platform. I had to learn that the hard way. I had to stop looking at my past like a curse and start seeing it as a classroom. Every betrayal taught me discernment. Every failure built resilience. Every heartbreak cracked me open so something more powerful could grow. But none of that transformation began until I made the shift from victim to victor, from powerless to powerful, from stuck to standing. That's the invitation in front of you right now. Not to pretend like nothing happened, but to stop letting what happened decide who you become. You're not your past. You're not your pain. You're not the version of you who went through that season. You're the version who survived it, who learned from it, who is now being called to lead, not limp. Your story isn't over. In fact, the moment you take responsibility, not for the hurt, but for your healing, that's the moment a new chapter begins. One where you're not the one being written about, but the one holding the pen. Let me tell you something that might sting a little, but it will also set you free. Not everybody is meant to walk with you into your next season. There are some people you love, some people you've grown up with, worked with, laughed with, cried with, but if you're serious about growing, evolving, stepping into your God-given destiny, you're going to have to make peace with this truth. When you elevate your energy, your circle will shift. I used to think loyalty meant holding on to every relationship no matter what. I thought that if I just kept being patient, kept showing up for people, kept dimming myself so they could feel comfortable, eventually they'd catch up. But what I learned, sometimes painfully, is that when God is trying to take you higher, he won't just give you wings, he'll remove the weights. And often those weights are people. That's not rejection, that's protection. Your energy is sacred. It's like a signal you're sending out to the world, and people are responding to it whether you realize it or not. When you're operating from fear, insecurity, or confusion, you attract people who feed that energy. People who gossip, who complain, who drain your spirit. But when you begin to operate from clarity, conviction, and confidence, something amazing happens. Your frequency shifts. And when your frequency shifts, your relationships begin to rearrange themselves. At first, it feels like loss. People start falling off. They stop calling. They stop inviting you. You start to feel isolated. But hear me, it's not isolation, it's elevation. God is clearing space. You can't take everyone with you. Some folks are only anointed to be part of your history, not your destiny. I remember when I started getting real about who I was becoming, I stopped laughing at the jokes that didn't line up with where I was headed. I stopped engaging in conversations that felt like emotional junk food. I stopped trying to shrink my dreams so they'd be digestible to people with no appetite for growth. And as I did that, I looked around and realized my circle had gotten smaller, but it had also gotten stronger. Because now I wasn't just surrounded by bodies, I was surrounded by builders. People either add to your fire or they drain your flame. And you've got to be bold enough to ask who around me is pouring in and who is pulling out. That doesn't mean you hate them. That doesn't mean you judge them, but it does mean you guard your garden. Because you've got something precious inside you, a calling, a vision, a purpose, and it's too valuable to be surrounded by people who don't water it. Look at nature. Birds fly in flocks, but eagles fly alone. Eagles don't flap, they soar. They don't chase storms, they rise above them. That's what happens when you stop operating from low energy, from small thinking, from fear-based living. You begin to attract and be attracted to people who want to build, not just bond, who want to grow, not just gossip, who are committed to purpose, not just proximity. So many people stay stuck, not because they don't have potential, but because they're plugged into people who keep short-circuiting their power. And let me tell you, it is not your job to dim your light so others don't feel insecure. It is not your job to carry people who refuse to walk. And it is definitely not your job to stay small so someone else doesn't feel left behind. This is the season where you need to be intentional about your energy and protective of your peace. Because the right people won't need you to explain your growth. They'll recognize it, respect it, and match it. Your vibe will introduce you before you ever open your mouth. And the people who are aligned with your assignment will recognize it instantly. Change your vibe and the right tribe will find you. But more importantly, you'll start becoming the kind of person who doesn't need validation to move forward. You'll be led by vision, not voices. And that is when you know you're truly walking in purpose. There's a moment in everyone's journey where you realize you can't keep waiting. You can't keep waiting for the perfect time, the perfect conditions, the perfect version of yourself to finally take that leap. At some point, you have to stop hoping and start moving. You have to stop rehearsing your potential and start releasing it. Transformation isn't something that happens when life gives you permission. Transformation happens the moment you decide. I remember standing on the edge of a big decision. I was scared. I was uncertain. I kept thinking, what if I'm not ready? What if I fail? What if I lose everything I've built? And then something rose up in me, something deeper than fear, something louder than doubt. It was purpose. It was calling me to rise. And that's when I heard a whisper in my spirit, if you don't do it now, when will you? Because here's the truth, tomorrow is not promised and someday is not a strategy. You've got a vision inside you, a dream that won't leave you alone, an idea, a calling, a fire that keeps flickering even when everything around you feels cold. That's not a coincidence. That's confirmation. That's your soul trying to get your attention. And you've got to make a decision. Are you going to keep silencing that voice, or are you finally going to let it speak? Let me be real with you. Growth is not comfortable. It's not supposed to be. You will lose some things on the way to who you're becoming. You will outgrow places, people, habits, and even versions of yourself. But that's the price of transformation. And the cost of staying the same, it's even higher. Because every day you delay your transformation, you deepen your frustration. Every time you choose fear over faith, you're reinforcing the very patterns you're trying to break. There's no magic moment coming, no breakthrough that will land in your lap without effort. The breakthrough is already here. It's in you. It's in the moment you say, I've had enough. It's in the decision to get uncomfortable, to walk in discipline, to break cycles, to bet on yourself, even when the odds feel stacked against you. That's where transformation begins. Not in some grand external shift, but in the quiet resolve to say, I'm not going back. I'm building forward. People ask me all the time, how do I change my life? I tell them it starts with a shift. Not in your situation, but in your spirit. You've got to shift your identity, shift your mindset, shift your energy. You can't attract what you haven't aligned with. You can't manifest what you don't believe you deserve. And you can't become who you're called to be if you're still committed to who you used to be. This is your moment. This is your line in the sand. You've been circling the same mountain long enough. You've prayed, you've journaled, you've talked about it, but now it's time to be about it. The world doesn't need another person with potential. The world needs you, unapologetic, activated, and transformed, not perfect, but in motion. Not fully ready, but fully committed. And the beautiful thing, once you start, once you shift, the momentum builds. One decision leads to another. One bold move opens doors you didn't even know existed. And before you know it, you're not just dreaming about transformation, you're living it. You're walking in it. You've become the very person you once hoped to be. Because you stopped waiting. Because you shifted your energy. Because you focused on yourself. And you transformed your life.